No, I was just saying excuse.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it was...
You're good.
I write for SouthernPrideScience.com, which is one of the most widely read marine biology blogs on the internet. I've been interviewed by NPR about it. A feature of mine was, a blog post of mine recently placed second in an internet-wide science writing contest, and one was expanded into a feature for Beyond Blue magazine. And the book is tentatively entitled Why Sharks Matter, the Ecological and Economic Importance of Sharks, Threats They Face, and How You Can Help. And I'd love to talk to you more about it.
You know what I would start with there would be this is a story about how sharks are good for you. And then you can you can sort of back into or slip in the side door to the other stuff that you had up top.
Okay.
Right, and go on from there. Because we want something that's a little different, a different spin. And that was, you essentially said that about 6 or 7 sentences in, about a third, half the way through. And that's sort of the freshest thing.
Right.
And the most surprising way to start.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would follow with the disciplinary part of the sharks, how they're declining. You know, like they're great for you and shit, they're going away, and then go into the other stuff.
And even if there's one paragraph in the final story that sharks are actually really good for us,
The sentence that jumped out at me was, "We're better off with sharks than without."
Yeah. And I would say that you did what I would think of as an understandable thing, which is you spent a lot of time trying to impress upon the listener, the editor, or the agent, whomever, that this was a big problem. Editors, actually, they don't need as much explanation of that as they're either going to believe you or not, and maybe that means we're just kind of superficial people, and there I go again. But they're either going to believe you or not. Wasting a lot of time, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean spending a lot of time, excuse me. Spending a lot of time sort of making an argument that would hold water, say, in a grant proposal, or in something like that, isn't actually the best use of your time. You're going to do that. Trust me, you're going to do that in the book. You're going to need a whole chapter. But the other thing I would ask is, what's the arc here?
Yeah, this is a topic, not a story.
That was what was missing.
And that's what I was going to. Yeah. Right. So there's finding some way, even though it's tough because books like this exist all over the place and they're important and they're good. But if you can find a story, if you can find, obviously you're not going to find like a shark, be like Bob the shark, but something like that. If there's is there a researcher out there who is trying to save these sharks, or is there actually some conflict out there? Is there a question? I mean, when you said we're better off with sharks than without them, I was like, well, aren't we better off with everything than, species-wise? Do we want any species to go away? So that didn't actually grab me in that way. And so I think instead of just sort of, that's in writing, anybody who's taken any writing classes heard the phrase show, don't tell, right? And that's the difference really between topic and story in a lot of ways. So that was, you told us that sharks are very important, but then we're going to be wanting a story. And so figuring out, are there characters? Well, who are the characters in your book? What do they do? And, maybe sharks are characters. That's tough. I would encourage you to find some people as characters too.
There's an exciting shark researcher somewhere who has an interesting life and talks.
Right.
So, I mean,
and who lost a limb to a shark.
Right. But is still trying to save them. Yeah.
Laugh all you want, but if you find that person, you've sold
You're golden. Right. So then it becomes a drama, right? There are people out there fighting to save these sharks, and there are people out there whose story you can use to make your points instead of just telling us.
There are shark bite victim survivors who have testified before Congress.
Yeah. There you go. So tell us about some of those. You got some of those shark bite victims who are fighting for the existence of sharks. That's great.
Well, one thing that helps me, doing stories, the best magazine stories, this is my own take. What I learned to look for and try to include, and the story was better, the more it had of these 3 things, the more successful it would be. And if you can get these 3 things in a pitch, the pitch will be more successful. Now, this is my own little formula, which is one, there has to be a new idea or an exciting take on an old idea, or an idea that's very powerful. There's a scientific idea at work here, okay? And another element is an articulate, interesting researcher. Either their life is extremely interesting or they talk so that you could turn them loose for 6 pages and no one will get bored.
Yeah.
All right, those people are not easy to find. If you can find that person, put them in the story. And then another, maybe there's 4. Another is a sort of regular person, or, and see, this is the problem, that's sort of the subject of the science. Now you have a shark. Monkeys are a lot easier. Right? But you don't have to have all these. The more the merrier. And a real story arc. There's
This happened,
a
then
person
this happened,
who
then
wants
this
something,
happened.
and
Right.
that's your protagonist, and there's
Yeah.
something in their way. That's the
Yeah.
researcher here. So you want those things in the story, and ideally you want them in your pitch. Because
Right.
now there's a sense of tension and drive and
Yeah.
a desire and frustration, as well as someone can, you know.
And in terms
talk
of,
to
you know, what your challenge now is going to be to write a proposal that shows some of this stuff. So, you know, with book proposals, a really good one, we'll start with a scene of, you know, something, it will pop us into the middle of that story and then pull back and tell us the sort of facts of it. I would say one of the things that in the pitch, just to keep in mind, is you sort of buried your credentials. So you didn't mention, you know, I've been interviewed by NPR and stuff until the very end. And I would, you know, you as an expert, that will help sell you, especially if you don't have a lot of writing experience. So, you know, just being able to say, you know, hey, this is my thing. Like, I know this. I'm the guy to write this book. You know, when NPR needs to talk to a shark guy, they call me. That will get you really far. So you don't want to bury that. And a lot of times people have a very hard time putting their credentials out front. Everybody's like, you know, nobody wants to be like, look at me, I'm so awesome. These people call me. But you do need to do that, and you need to just sort of be okay with it. You need to have a bio that you're like, this is me, and I'm fine putting it out there. And
As brutal as it may seem, that NPR
yeah.
is at least as important as the PhD.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take
Somebody
right.
put that, somebody Twitter that. Yeah. Tweet that.
I just have a question. So I've written a book and it's coming out, it's about our research with bonobos in Congo. So how would I write to an editor and say, I have this book coming out but I don't want it to go straight to just the book reviews. How do I get one of your writers to do a larger piece on bonobos? Or do I have to get someone like David and send it to David and make him pitch it?
Why aren't you writing it?
Sorry?
Why aren't you writing it?
Oh, just like time, I've got courses and like research.
Well, why not have it excerpted by somebody? Or try to do a deal where you have part of the book excerpted before it comes out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Yeah, well, I guess doesn't your publicist do that? I was thinking of like more like larger.
did you get our session this morning about publicity?
I mean-
No, yeah.
I mean, like, I have friends that have been coming out this year that are having
mixed
excerpted in
results and mixed feelings.
Geographic Magazine or Traveler or what have
Right.
you.
And who's the right person? Like, is it the book editor? Or
It's
is it
whoever
like
you can get to with the
It's
magazine.
like you
in a lot of
email,
ways.
yeah, like whoever you know. And then,
So yeah, it's similar to the sort of connection stuff. And I would point out that we do have someone that's he's over here just doing this, but you know, so right, it's like I have actually the current issue of O Magazine that just hit like yesterday has an excerpt of my book in it, and that was, you know, I had written for them several years ago, and then all the editors who I was working with, who I had spent, you know, quite several years, I've been like, okay, my book's gonna come out, and I'm gonna remind you every year or so about it because I really want my excerpt in there, and then they all left.
by the way,
and-
somebody just read your book that you got.
Oh, is it
so I
Kathy
said, no,
Moray?
so you should talk to him after the thing.
Yeah,
You guys should
somebody
talk.
else.
But so then a friend of mine just sort of knew someone else at O, but you know, so it was basically the woman who ended up really helping me get the excerpt into O was an editor who's never done any book excerpts. She's a feature editor there. She's not the person who handles excerpts, but she had the book and we talked and she was like, yes, I want us to do this. And so she went to the editor-in-chief and said, hey, let's do this. So anybody at a magazine can
But
help
say
make
you
that
wanted
happen.
to like get like a broader issue out, like, you know, stem cell research or you know, cell cloning without
Yeah,
permission.
story.
Like,
Yeah.
who would you know, if there was
You
a
mean
broader
you would
issue you're
write-
really passionate about, like, how would you like get
You have
people
you have a
interested?
story, right? I mean, you have to have a story to tell. And in your case, I mean, if you've got the book written, then you have stuff that could be excerpted. So that's probably your best bet in terms of I don't have time to write feature stories.
The other thing I would do
Right,
in
thanks.
terms of not having time to do stuff, although, you know, I guess you just kind of have to find it or not, but I think that this sounds like a visual medium
Yeah.
thing. My wife is very fond, she works in television, she's very fond of telling me that I don't work in a visual medium, even though, as far as I know, you know, people don't have our stuff read to them, so we have to look at it. But so Cliff is definitely your guy, I think. But the other thing I'd recommend as a recovering managing editor of a website is that if you have a slideshow and you can do like 10 things you needed to know about bonobos, then and you have pictures or some other person who can get you pictures or something, you will find many homes for it.
Yeah. And I would just say, I mean, your response to, but what isn't that what a publicist does? I mean, that's sort of a misconception of all writers who do